Welcome to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Two sports talking sports with those in the know on the Brouhaha Show.
Welcome to the Brouhaha. I'm Marshall Wood along with Dale McKee. Just two sports talking sports. So it says to me, let's do a radio show. And here we are. Dale, I think we're going to have some fun. Are you ready to go?
I'm very excited, Marshall. I have always kind of been a sports junkie, like to talk sports with you, Marshall. We've had some good arguments over the years.
Yes, we have, Dale.
And so I guess the definition of this is it's supposed to be a noisy and overexcited reaction or response to something. And so we're responding to what's happening in the sports world that affects our Mississippi sports. So we hope you enjoy the show.
You have a long history, Dale, in sports writing. How long have you been writing and being published?
Well, I started full time when I was still in college over at the Laurel Leader Call newspaper. It was a daily paper at the time. I wrote sports for a couple years there, full time. And for a lot of years, I just wrote sports to help out newspapers, whether it was the Meridian paper, Hattiesburg paper, and other papers. You know, I've written for the Clarion Ledger, and I've written for the Times-Picayune certain stories, things like that. I did do it a few years ago for a couple of years full-time again in Laurel, and then I decided that I would just kind of go out on my own. So right now I write a weekly column, a wrap-up of what happens the week before, and my niche is that I send it to weekly papers, and it might be some in Smith County, some in Jasper County. I have one in Covington County. I have one in Webster, Winona, just various papers run it, Philadelphia. So a couple TV stations run it for me also. And
let me ask you something, Dale. You primarily, like in the sports writing side. I do know that you do some interviews on a pretty regular basis as well. Am I correct in that?
Yes, I do. From time to time, somebody I do it like maybe once a month. There's a show out of Hattiesburg with Mitch Williams that he interviews me. And it's mostly about high school sports, and sometimes we get into the college or ever really what's coming up for in the future or in the past. So that's kind of what I do, and that's kind of how this show revolved. I was approached by the local radio station here in Waynesboro to do a little 5-minute sports show once a week, and I thought after my interviewing with Mitch Marshall, I don't think you can do a 5-minute sports interview. I really don't.
It's hard to do, Dale. We do some of the stuff that I've gotten involved with the football broadcasting, sport broadcasting from the radio standpoint. And, I interview folks and I tell them I have 8-minute clicks, that I go and they say 8 minutes. I said, trust me, it's going to go by a lot faster than you think. It doesn't take long to cover some time.
It doesn't. Mitch usually has a 20-minute slot for me. His show comes on at Mondays it's starting at 6 o'clock in the Hattiesburg area. And so Mitch and I go way back because he's a ex-sportscaster there at the local Laurel Hattiesburg television station. So we've had a lot of fun over the years talking about a lot of different things. So that's kind of why I approached you, Marshall, because I thought, if I could team up with somebody, we could have a 30-minute show. It'd be better than a 5-minute show. So we're going to start with 30 minutes. And
we hope it's going to be better than a 5-minute show.
and we hope it expands. And so, we'd like to hear from you guys, too. And Marshall's going to get into that with you guys later.
Here at the Brouhaha, you mentioned it. We're going to be talking, about sports. We're going to start here locally, but, we're going to reach out into the state, regional, and national issues and personalities. And we're counting on your history in sports writing to give us a segue, if you will, into the minds of some very interesting folks throughout history in the world of sports. For starters, Dale, let's talk about. Give us like maybe 2-3 names or some folks that you or some areas in which you plan to reach in the weeks to come, and likely topics maybe that you'd be discussing if you can do that for us.
Well, Marshall, when we look at Mississippi, you're gonna have to have experts from Ole Miss, and I'm talking about experts. I can talk to you a little bit about Ole Miss football or Mississippi State football or Southern Miss football, but when you need somebody to analyze and detail stuff, you need to look out for experts. Like today, we have Rickey Neeves, who is the director of the Mississippi High School Association, giving us, hey, this is how it's going to be, and so it's really not our opinion. It's what they think. But everybody that comes on the show is going to basically give us their opinion on something, except Rickey today. He's going to tell us exactly probably the way it's going to go. But next week we have Parrish Alford from the Tupelo paper. He's a college sports writer, been in Mississippi for over 30 years. He was at Meridian for a short time, and then he went to Tupelo about 28, 29 years ago, I believe. So I've known him for a long time, and he's going to help us with the college because he used to be the Ole Miss beat writer and the Mississippi State beat writer.
Now, you asked me what a beat writer was, and I didn't have a clue. So, there may be some other people out there in the same boat I'm in that don't know very much. What's a beat writer?
Well, I was very surprised that you didn't know what a beat writer was.
I thought somebody got beat up for saying something wrong. I didn't know.
Well, I'm sure that's a term from the 1930s. I don't know. Beat, I guess like a policeman working his beat.
Yeah.
So I guess
that makes sense.
That's where it came from, because sports writers back in the day were called scribes, and other things too. But scribes was a nice nickname because we've definitely called other things. But in telling you that, a beat writer is somebody that just covers that school exclusively. They cover every sport in it, whether it's basketball, tennis, anything. But their concentration is there. A lot of them actually live in the town of the school that they cover.
Yeah.
And Parrish was at Mississippi State for a long time, and then he moved over to Ole Miss maybe about 10 years ago. But now they've got him in a new role, and he'll be on next week. But he's going to be the college sports writer, so he will not be on a beat anymore. He will cover the games of interest, which be a lot of Ole Miss and State games. But it could be a Jackson State Alcorn game. It could be, I don't know, an Alabama Tennessee game. But he'll get to choose where he wants to go. So I told him the other day I was very jealous of that job, because kind of pick and choose what games you want to go to. Who wouldn't like to do that? So that's kind of what a beat writer is.
That's two pretty good hits for us with a young program to get guys like that, and we're looking forward to tonight's show and well as next week's as well. We talk about our first guest, and we talk about the Mississippi High School Activities Association. Generally speaking, what is the Mississippi High School Activities Association? I'm assuming, and you can tell me that's like a governing body over athletics in Mississippi public schools. I would imagine something like the NCAA maybe, or something like that. How does that work, Dale?
Well, it's very similar. They have, like anything else, they have directors and they have people that are working up there. They might have somebody that deals just with the officials, and and you say, well, the officials, it's just not complaints about the officials, it's training the officials, recruiting officials, things like that, picking the officials that's going to call the state championship games. It deals with eligibility. It deals with if a school gets in trouble, plays an illegal player, they have to handle that, but they don't handle it per se. They have committees made up of maybe coaches or principals or superintendents. So the director is just the spokesperson basically for those people.
Does it have an executive committee that's the primary rule?
Yes, they do.
Government.
And a rule in Mississippi high school might take a while to get into a rule, because you have to bring it up at what they call a district meeting. They have 2 district meetings a year, and so somebody has to do a proposal. Like, for years, the way the football playoffs did, there was a lot of times teams would have a champion of a district would have to go to a runner-up's place to play for the South State Championship, a team that they played during the regular season, and maybe already had beaten. They had still go back to that place. So they changed it up a few years ago, about 5 years ago, to where that the top seed would host the South State Championship. So it would be like that. Now they do have, the first couple weeks, everybody gets to host a game. If you win the first week and you didn't host, there's a possibility you're going to host the second week, or something like that. So they've tried to make it fair in that regard.
Have we had some local guys or people, I should that have served on the executive committee? I think maybe Mr. Staten, I could think of, might have been on the executive committee at one time. Maybe Mr. Hathorn at the high school now. Are those people? Have we had people from Wayne County serve on that executive committee?
Yes, we have, and I think the two people that you're talking about have.
Yeah.
They have, and each if the district meeting, say for the one around here is District 5. The state is divided into 8 districts. District 5, they had their meeting in July. Mr. Neeves came down and talked, and at that meeting they had local representatives. Like, okay, they're going to pick somebody from the 5 into 6As because we don't have very many. We only have Meridian, a 6A school in our district, and everybody else. Now, when I call about district, I'm talking about Lauderdale County, I'm talking about Newton County, I'm talking about Jasper, Smith, Wayne, and Jones. Those are people, Covington County, they compile District 5. So when they meet, they'll choose a 5A, 6A representative. They'll vote on it. Somebody recommends somebody, and then each school gets one vote. Just each school gets one vote. So there could be 40 coaches from a school, but only one school gets each vote. Then they pick a 4A representative, a 3A, 2A, and 1A. So, even the smaller schools are representative on the local committees, and they decide certain things before it does go on to Jackson.
Well, Dale, appreciate you for getting us kind of up to speed on the MHA. I always get that's harder to say than it looks. MHSAA. It's Mississippi High School Activities Association is easier to say than the letters. But anyway,
it is a voluntary organization. But if you want to play sports, you got to join.
Voluntary as long as you. Yeah, I got you. Well, listen, we're fixing to get to our first guest in a minute, but I do want to give a shout out to our first sponsor of the Brouhaha, Jackson Brothers Construction over in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. We appreciate our friends from Hattiesburg and their support in this endeavor that is the Brouhaha. And now at this time, let's turn our attention to the first guest of our new show, and that's going to be Mr. Rickey Neeves, the Executive Director of the Mississippi High School Activities Association. So let's just have a listen in and see what Dale and Mr. Neeves have to say.
All right, welcome to our show today. And today we're going to welcome Rickey Neeves, who became the Executive Director of the Mississippi High School Activities Association back on January the 1st. He served as an Associate Director for the Mississippi High School since 2011. He joined the Mississippi High School after 32 years in education, where he was first employed as a teacher, coach, athletic director, and assistant principal in the Lee County School District. Prior to joining the Mississippi High School staff, he worked 12 years as a high school principal and superintendent in the Boonville School District. He is a former baseball player at Delta State University with more than 40 years of experience. Thanks for joining us today, Rickey. Hey, one question about your baseball playing days. Did you get to play for the legend Boo Ferris?
I did. I played 4 years for Coach Ferris, and that's maybe one of the highlights of my life is getting to play for such a legendary and also a gentleman and a great baseball guy.
Oh, he was. The Clyburn twins had a clinic one time at Smith Wills, and I took my oldest boy up there. I got to meet him, and he was a true gentleman. I got tickled that day. He was in a baseball uniform, and he was wearing black wingtop shoes. So
that sounds just like.
So he was, but I saw him several years later when they named a stadium for Tim Harvey, and he remembered my name, and I could not believe it. I was floored. So he evidently has a great memory.
That was his most remarkable trait is he never forgot a name.
I don't think he has. Well, thanks for joining us again today, Ricky. And we're going to let you talk about what Mississippi High School is planning on how they plan to maybe handle these pandemic issues that are with the rising number of positive cases in our state. Our first question to you is, what are some of the safety issues that the Mississippi High School has put in place for your member schools?
We kept all of the COVID safety precautions that we did last year. That where we started out the year, we're still limiting students, telling our schools to have separate water bottles for the student athletes. We're still trying to practice social distancing as much as possible. Practice in small groups, keep everyone away from each other. One of the better things, that the only good thing, I guess, that we say, if anything good comes out of COVID, is we did find that with all of the sanitation measures we took in our dressing rooms and our bleacher areas and showers and things like that, not only went a long way in helping prevent the spread of COVID, but it also helped with other illnesses that might come out during this time. So we kept all of those in place. We're encouraging students, coaches, and everyone to get vaccinated if they choose. I want to make sure you know that is not mandated, but we do encourage that, but that is a personal choice if they get vaccinated or not. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing and continue to do to try to keep our athletes and our coaches and fans as safe as possible.
Is it a local issue when a school goes virtual, for people that may not understand that? That is a local issue, right?
Yes, that's the local school district decision at this time. We did back in April. Our board reinstated a rule that says if schools or a student go 100% virtual, then they cannot practice or participate in games. That was being encouraged by most everyone over the state to get students back in school and not rely on virtual learning because Mississippi is a very rural state and internet is not available in all places, and virtual learning just is not as adequate as in-person learning. So with the safety measures that we're taking, with vaccine available, masks available in some areas, in some school districts mandate those and some doesn't, and there again, that's their choice. But with all of these things in place, we just feel like that it was a feeling of our board that it's bad enough in your school where you have to close the schools, and we don't need to put other communities at risk by traveling into their community and playing, or them coming into that community and playing. So for safety issues and to help stop the spread of that, we just say that they cannot practice or play during any time that the school is 100% virtual.
Well, let me ask you about this, and this may be a local deal too. Does a high school or does the school system come up with if a player is vaccinated, he may not have to be quarantined? Is that a local issue also? I mean, if a school district says, the football team is going to have to be quarantined. They got so many positive cases. If somebody's vaccinated, would the school system maybe let them play over an unvaccinated player?
Yes, you're probably, and I did not mention, we have a sports medicine an advisory committee that has 3 or 4 doctors on it that we seek advice and recommendations from. And we also look at the CDC and also the Mississippi Medical Association. And in conferences with them, we've come up with, if you've been vaccinated and are showing no symptoms, then you do not have to quarantine. But if you're not vaccinated and you've been in close contact, then there's a chance you have to be quarantined. But vaccinated athletes or coaches, as long as they're not showing symptoms and are testing negative, then they do not have to be quarantined, and they would be able to play if there's enough team members to play.
I got you. So that would be probably the high school itself. If they don't have any offensive linemen, they probably wouldn't want to be able to play this week.
Wouldn't want to play, and then
Yeah.
there again, if the school is open and there's enough players available, of course we encourage them and want them to play.
Okay, well, let me ask you. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Well, I was going to say the only time that you don't play is if the school is 100% virtual and closed. Then any game scheduled during that quarantine period or that school closure period have to be forfeited.
Okay, so there's no rescheduling like last year, swapping around or anything like that?
No, sir, not this year. We tried that last year, and of course in football, you just can't hardly reschedule because schedules are full, and it's a safety issue if you play 2 games a week, and then if you are allowed to play 2, just say on Monday and Friday, well then you turn around and play again the Friday of next week. So you might play it would be forced to play a Friday, a Monday, or Tuesday, and then again the next Friday, and that just becomes a real safety issue for our student athletes of the high school age.
All right, two final questions, Ricky. First of all, if say for instance there is a team that gets quarantined this week, and they're supposed to play somebody, say, in 2 weeks. So, does the first team that gets quarantined, are they the team that if they don't show up for their game, even though the other team is quarantined too, would that be a non-scheduled game, no contest game, or would the first one that I guess quarantined would they get the loss? If you understand my question,
I do, and that would be if it's a non-district game, it would be declared a no contest.
Okay.
If it was a district game, then we would have to make a decision because that does, and in that case, and what we did last year in football, in that case, both teams would have to take a loss because neither team was capable of playing.
All right, and the final question for you, talking about the games like that. Are you going to? Last year, the season was delayed. Is there any talk of the season being delayed, or are we going to possibly go ahead and start scrimmaging next Friday night or Thursday night on August 19th and 20th?
Right now, Dale, our plan is to go full speed ahead.
Okay.
If things continue to trend in the way they're trending now, there is a possibility that the season, I won't say would be delayed, but it would be like we did last year and just start cutting short these non-district games, and instead of playing 10 games, we would end up with an 8 or a 9 game season.
I understand.
But that's one of those bridges. Although we have a tentative plan for that, that's one of those bridges that we're not going to cross until we have to.
I understand that, and nobody wants you to, I'm sure. Hey, listen, Ricky, we really appreciate your time, and really, I appreciate your leadership and helping Mississippi High School and all our student athletes in the state hopefully get through this medical crisis. And we appreciate you again. Thank you for calling in to us.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Dale, and a special thanks to all of our schools out there that are helping us get through this. So thank you, and you're much appreciated.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Okay, welcome back to the Brouhaha, and we're Dale. You did a good job with that interview. I appreciate that, and I've learned a lot listening to that. There's some very interesting things. I mean, COVID, what we went through last year, and we're coming into this year, and here it is again. Everybody just knew it was going to be a thing of the past when it rolled around this year. Some very interesting thing. One of the things that really hit me when it came out in the Clarion Ledger about a week ago was that if you go to a like Ricky said, the completely virtual off-site learning, then you're gonna be losing you're gonna be forfeiting the game. You're gonna be forfeiting the game. And people were talking about that around town, and I asked a couple, and they asked me, and I said, well, the thing about this, and Ricky mentioned this, and you and Ricky talked about it, but it bears repeating, why not? I mean, if we deem ourselves locally to be so infected that we can't gather, it's not safe for us to gather, that if we didn't forfeit the game, we would be spreading that disease or contributing to the spread in other communities. I follow that rationale. I didn't like it at first, but it makes really perfectly good sense when you're trying to control this outbreak.
Well, Mississippi High School has is like he said in the conversation with us, they've got medical experts, and some people don't agree with medical experts in Mississippi
You
evidently
think?
because they've asked some people to get vaccinated,
Yeah.
and they seem to not think it's a serious matter. But I was reading the other day about the Saints. Do you know what Saints are going to do? They're going to require you to show you're vaccinated, that you're fully vaccinated to get into the Superdome this year for a Saints game.
That's the first I've heard of that. I was wondering
and
how they were going to
also have said that if you do not have your vaccinated cards, you have to prove that you had a negative test within the last 72 hours. And you have to wear a mask during the whole game except when you're eating or drinking. So if they're doing that, and of course, Louisiana and Mississippi are a couple of the states. I'm not sure about Alabama's percentages, but when I was looking it up the other day, we're 41% vaccinated, and that's not even half our population, and our hospitals are going overboard trying to help during this pandemic.
Now, let me ask you this. I remember last year, right before the season started, they limited attendance to 200 people in a game. I guess that was each side. You talk about what the Saints are requiring down there. I know it's a different ball game in the NFL, and you get 60, 80, 100,000 people gathered up. But has it been discussed or mentioned at all about limiting attendance at Mississippi high school games this year?
No, it hasn't. But now the Mississippi High School did not limit attendance last year. That was by the governor. The governor gave an order last year that you could only have a percentage of your seats. So if you have a stadium, say that's 2,000 seats, and they say you can only have 10% there, then that's your 200. And then you're going to have to give the other team something. And so that's kind of the way it went down last year. We haven't heard that because Governor Reeves, he hadn't really made a lot of, I guess, rulings like he did last year when he closed certain businesses and things like that. Mm-hmm. But we've also, listening to Dr. Dobbs, he expressed that he was more concerned about indoor activities than he was outdoor activities. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that means. The Superdome is an indoor building.
Well, I got you. With
probably ventilation, air conditioning, and what they need down there. And so when you're outside, you're just in the elements. So, the thing that Mississippi High School was worried about was, the bus situation. You put 50 band members, 50 football players, or 50, baseball players, what you're going to have, basketball players. Sometimes boys and girls teams ride together in the same bus to basketball games. That's what they're worried about, the close contact, and things like that. Schools are doing their best to spread people out, try to keep them 6 feet, smaller in the class. Now, when you talk about hybrid, I want people to understand there's 3 ways here. you either have everybody coming. A lot of schools have everybody coming right now, except some that's had a lot of outbreaks. And really, 3 is considered an outbreak in an area. Like 3 in a classroom, they can quarantine that classroom. So, in telling you that, then you have the hybrid schedule, which is half the kids, say A through L, come one day, come 3 days a week, and M through Z come 2 days a week. You can still play because you have kids coming to school on that. But on your hybrid school, your sports programs are basically all your programs. It says it's just not football and sports. It's cheerleaders, it's speech and drama, it's debate, it's anything to do with Mississippi high school activities. You cannot practice.
If you're on a complete virtual.
If you're complete virtual. Hybrids, you can continue to practice.
Now, what does the hybrid mean? Does that mean that some students are going to come one day or another? Explain how that works.
Yeah, well, that was the way I was telling you. Hybrid is the A through the L comes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the M through Z students come on Tuesday and Thursday, and then they swap it up the next week. And M through Z comes 3 days a week and all that.
You established this in your conversation with our guest today, and that's a local issue. Our district, our school, our
school, like in Wayne County and Jones County schools, they're up and running.
Well, listen, you talk about the time when we got started, how fast it flies. And Dale, our time is about run its course for our show tonight, and we certainly appreciate you. We appreciate our guests. That's gonna do it for this week. For next week, as you said, next week's version of the Brouhaha, we'll have Parrish Alford with us, and we look forward to having him speak with us about some NCAA issues with a focus on the transfer portal and the name, image, and likeness situation that we're looking at. Be sure to join us Tuesdays at 6 p.m. on WABO FM 105.5 for the Brouhaha. This is Marshall Wood along with Dale McKee, and we will see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.